History is not the straight, upward line we were taught to believe in during our school years. We have been conditioned to view human progress as a ladder, a slow, grueling climb from the darkness of the cave to the neon glow of the modern metropolis. This narrative is comforting. It places us at the very peak of the mountain, looking down on our primitive ancestors with a sense of intellectual charity. We assume that because we have smartphones and satellites, those who came before us must have been limited by their lack of tools, their lack of chemistry, and their lack of imagination. But the deeper we dig into the crust of our planet, the more that ladder begins to look like a circle, or perhaps a spiral that periodically collapses into the abyss. Scattered across the globe, hidden beneath layers of sediment, and forgotten in the back rooms of provincial museums, are objects that shatter the linear timeline of human achievement. These are the out-of-place artifacts, the ghosts of a technology that officially shouldn't exist. They appear in the archaeological record like glitches in a simulation, perfectly machined stones, advanced metallurgical alloys, and complex astronomical computers that predate their official inventions by thousands of years. While mainstream history often dismisses these as anomalies, they are, in fact, the physical evidence of a terrifying possibility: that we are not the first advanced civilization to inhabit this world, but merely the latest. High in the Bolivian Andes, at an altitude of over 12,000 feet, lies the archaeological site of Puma Punku. To the uninitiated, it looks like a field of shattered debris, the ruins of a temple complex that was leveled by a forgotten catastrophe. But to an engineer, Puma Punku is a masterclass in impossible geometry. The site is famous for its H-blocks, massive stones carved from red sandstone and andesite, an incredibly hard volcanic rock. The precision of these blocks is so high that it rivals modern CNC machining. We are looking at internal 90-degree angles that are perfectly sharp, flat surfaces that show no signs of tool marks, and a modular design that suggests a standardized production line. While the precision of the stone containers in Egypt's Serapeum is often cited as a pinnacle of ancient engineering, the builders of Puma Punku faced an even greater challenge. Unlike the limestone of the Nile, andesite is so hard that it can only be efficiently cut with diamond-tipped tools or modern high-pressure water jets. Yet, the Tiwanaku culture, which officially occupied this site around 500 AD, is said to have possessed no iron, no wheels, and no writing system. To suggest that they achieved these results by bashing the rock with stone hammers is an insult to the laws of physics. The surfaces are flat to within a fraction of a millimeter, and the blocks were designed to lock together like Lego bricks using poured metal dovetail joints, a technique that ensures structural integrity against the powerful earthquakes of the region. The sheer scale of the operation is equally baffling. Some of these stones weigh over 130 tons. Moving such a mass across a high-altitude plateau, where the air is too thin for heavy physical exertion, would be a logistical nightmare even for a modern construction crew. There is no evidence of a road system capable of supporting such weight, nor is there any evidence of the millions of tons of debris that should have been generated during the carving process. It is as if the blocks were manufactured elsewhere and simply placed here as part of a grand architectural puzzle that we no longer have the instructions to solve. If Puma Punku represents an impossible mastery of stone, the Ulfbert swords represent an impossible mastery of fire. Between the 9th and 11th centuries, a series of swords appeared in northern Europe that were so superior to their contemporaries, they were whispered to be magical. These blades, marked with the inscription plus VLFBERHT plus, were the pinnacle of Viking Age weaponry. While the average warrior fought with brittle, pattern-welded iron that would bend or shatter in the heat of battle, the Ulfbert was made of crucible steel. To produce crucible steel, the iron must be heated to approximately 1,650 degrees Celsius, 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, the impurities, or slag, are melted away, allowing the carbon content to be precisely controlled. The result is a metal that is flexible enough to absorb a blow and hard enough to hold a razor-sharp edge. This is not just impressive for the Middle Ages, it is a chemical feat that European metallurgy would not officially replicate until the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. The mystery lies in the source of the heat. The forges of the Viking era were incapable of reaching 1,650 degrees Celsius. They were simple charcoal pits that could barely reach the temperatures needed to soften iron, let alone liquefy it. Similar to how the iron column in Delhi remains rust-free due to a unique phosphorus-rich composition that modern industry struggles to replicate, the Ulfbert blades possess a purity of metal that seems out of time. Some historians suggest the steel was imported from the East, following the Volga trade route from the crucible forges of Central Asia. But even if the material was imported, the knowledge required to forge it into a functional blade, without the steel absorbing oxygen and becoming brittle, requires a level of chemical understanding that should have been centuries away. These swords were not just weapons. They were high-tech exports from a world that had mastered the molecular structure of metal, while the rest of Europe was still living in wooden huts. In the Zhejiang province of China, there exists a subterranean world that defies all explanation. Discovered in 1992 by a local villager, the Longyu Caves are a series of 24 massive man-made caverns carved into solid siltstone. They are not natural formations, nor are they simple mines. The caves are architectural marvels with ceilings reaching heights of 30 meters and walls covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks. What makes the Longyu Caves so disturbing is the total absence of a record. The construction of the Great Wall of China involved hundreds of thousands of laborers and was meticulously documented in imperial scrolls. The Terracotta Army, an immense project involving 8,000 unique clay soldiers, was a monumental undertaking for the first emperor. Yet, the excavation of the Longyu Caves, which involved the removal of over 1 million cubic meters of rock, is never mentioned in a single ancient text. There are no tools found in the caves. There are no bones of the workers who must have died during the construction. Most importantly, there is no sign of the 1 million cubic meters of waste rock. If you excavate that much stone, you create a mountain of debris, yet the surrounding landscape shows no trace of it. Furthermore, the precision of the carving is uncanny. The parallel lines on the walls are consistent throughout the entire complex, as if they were carved by a machine with a fixed stroke. The pillars supporting the ceilings are placed with mathematical precision to prevent the soft rock from collapsing. In an age where light could only be provided by torches, how did the builders maintain such perfect symmetry and alignment deep underground? like the underground galleries of the Serapeum, which were carved with such accuracy they required modern industrial gauges to even measure their flatness. The Longyou caves suggest an engineering discipline that has since been lost to time. We often think of prehistoric man as being hyper-focused on the immediate, on the hunt, the harvest, and the tribe. We don't imagine them as sophisticated astronomers capable of calculating the mechanics of the solar system. Then we found the Nebra sky disk. Unearthed in Germany in 1999, this bronze disk, inlaid with gold leaf, is the oldest concrete depiction of the cosmos in human history, dating back to 1600 BC. The disk depicts the sun, a crescent moon, and 32 stars, including the Pleiades. For years, it was viewed as a ritual object, perhaps a piece of religious jewelry. But recent analysis has revealed it to be a sophisticated astronomical instrument. The gold arcs on the sides of the disk represent the angle between the solstices at the latitude of the find site. By using the disk, a Bronze Age observer could synchronize the solar and lunar calendars. This is a critical function for an agricultural society. Because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year, the seasons will drift over time. If a farmer plants based solely on the moon, they will eventually find themselves planting in the middle of winter. The Nebra sky disk provided a mathematical rule. When a crescent moon appeared next to the Pleiades in a specific orientation, a leap month had to be added to the calendar. This level of astronomical precision is something we usually associate with the great civilizations of Babylon or Greece. Yet here it was, being used in the forests of Central Europe 1,000 years earlier. Much like the Antikythera mechanism, which used a system of 37 bronze gears to predict eclipses and planetary positions, the Nebra sky disk shows that our ancestors were not just watching the sky. They were calculating it. One of the most frustrating enigmas in archaeology is the Roman dodecahedron. Over 100 of these hollow bronze objects have been found across the former Roman Empire, specifically in the northern provinces like Britain and Gaul. They are 12-sided geometric shapes, each face featuring a circular hole of a varying diameter, and each corner adorned with a small knob. They are beautiful, they are clearly standardized, and we have absolutely no idea what they were used for. There is not a single mention of these objects in the vast corpus of Roman literature. Not in the military manuals of Vegetius, not in the natural histories of Pliny, and not in the architectural treatises of Vitruvius. It is as if the Romans collectively decided never to write about them. This silence of the archives suggests that the object was so common and its use so obvious that it didn't warrant an explanation, much like we don't feel the need to write instructions on how to use a spoon. Theories range from the mundane to the complex. Some argue they were candle holders or mace heads, though they show no signs of soot or impact damage. Others suggest they were surveying instruments used to calculate the distance to a target by looking through the varying hole sizes. A more recent and highly compelling theory is that they were knitting jigs used to create the fingers of woolen gloves, a vital piece of equipment for Roman soldiers stationed in the freezing northern frontiers. Whatever their purpose, the dodecahedron represents a lost technology of the everyday. It is a reminder that a culture's most essential tools are often the first to be forgotten once the culture collapses. Just as the secret of making the flexible glass or the Greek fire died with their respective empires, The dodecahedron remains a mute witness to a Roman ingenuity that required no written record. In the heart of Turkey's Cappadocia region, there is a city that doesn't rise into the sky, but plunges into the earth. Derinkuyu is an 18-story underground metropolis, carved into the soft, volcanic tuff, capable of housing up to 20,000 people. It is a marvel of civil engineering that solves three of the most difficult problems of human habitation: ventilation, water, and security. The city is equipped with over 15,000 ventilation shafts that extend deep into the ground, ensuring that even at the lowest levels, the air is fresh. The plumbing system was designed to be independent of the surface to prevent an attacking army from poisoning the water supply. Most impressively, the city could be sealed from the inside by massive, circular stone doors that could only be moved from within. These doors, similar to the sealed stone passages found in the Serapeum, were the ultimate defense. Constructing such a city requires more than just manual labor. It requires an advanced understanding of structural geology. If the pillars were too thin, or the arches improperly angled, the weight of the mountain above would have crushed the city instantly. Yet Derinkuyu has remained structurally sound for millennia. It was a fortress of the mind, a place where an entire civilization could disappear in an afternoon. But the question remains: who were they hiding from? And how did they manage the gargantuan task of removing and disposing of the millions of tons of excavated rock without leaving a trace on the surface? In 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis compiled a world map that shouldn't be possible. Drawn on gazelle skin, the map shows the western coasts of Europe and North Africa, the coast of Brazil, and most controversially, a coastline that many researchers identify as Antarctica. The problem is twofold. First, Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820, more than 300 years after the map was drawn. Second, and more importantly, the map appears to show the coastline of Queen Maud Land without ice. Subglacial seismic surveys have confirmed that the coastline depicted on the map matches the actual geological continent of Antarctica, which has been covered by a mile-thick ice sheet for at least 6,000 years. Piri Reis himself admitted that he did not survey these lands. Instead, he claimed to have compiled his map from ancient source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This implies that someone thousands of years ago had the technology to map the entire globe, including the southernmost continent, before it was covered in ice. Such a feat would require not just seafaring skill, but a knowledge of spherical trigonometry and the ability to calculate longitude, a skill that the West did not master until the late 1700s. Like the Antikythera mechanism, which integrated Babylonian math with Greek geometry to create a handheld universe, the Piri Reis map suggests a legacy of high-level cartography that survived in fragments through the Dark Ages. It is a window into a time when the world was much smaller than we believe, and where the oceans were not barriers, but highways for a civilization that has since vanished from our memory. When we look at these artifacts, the machined stones of Pumapunku, the crucible steel of the Vikings, the underground cities of Turkey, and the astronomical computers of the Bronze Age, we are forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Progress is not a constant. It is a fragile, flickering flame. We are currently living in a high cycle of history, where our technology feels invincible. But the ruins of our ancestors tell a different story. They tell a story of great forgettings, of times when the most advanced knowledge of the age was simply lost to the wind. The true mystery of the ancient world is not how they built the pyramids or how they forged the Ulfbert. Human beings are, and have always been, incredibly intelligent. The mystery is why we keep losing our way. Why does a civilization that can map the stars or carve a city into a mountain suddenly revert to primitive tools and forgotten math? Perhaps history is not a ladder, but a spiral. We move upward, gaining knowledge until a catalyst, a climate shift, a solar flare, or a societal collapse knocks us back down to the next turn of the circle. We start again, looking at the stones of the gods left behind by those who came before us, wondering how they did it. We call it magic or mystery because we cannot accept that they were just like us, only they were further along the curve. Today, we store our knowledge on silicon chips and in digital clouds. But if the power were to go out tomorrow, if the satellites were to fall, how much of our modern genius would survive? In 1,000 years, would a future archaeologist find a rusted smartphone and call it a ritual object? Would they look at our skyscrapers and wonder how we move the steel without ancient magic? The artifacts we find in the dirt are not just curiosities. They are warnings. They are the physical proof that everything we know can be forgotten. We are not the first to believe we were the masters of the earth. And if history is any guide, we will not be the last. The archive of the past is a mirror, and if we look closely enough, we might just see our own future looking back at us. We have spent centuries trying to solve the ancient world, but perhaps the ancient world has already solved us. They knew that the only thing more permanent than stone and steel is the human capacity for amnesia. Each artifact is a message in a bottle, tossed across the ocean of time, waiting for someone to finally understand the language it's written in. The question is whether we are ready to listen, or if we will continue to walk through the ruins of our betters, convinced that we are the first to ever touch the stars.